To be morally neutral is to aid and abet evil. And the UN is predicated on moral neutrality. Membership is open to everybody. You've already mentioned that Russia and China, in both their original communist form and then the authoritarian forms today, they were invited into the Security Council, the most powerful organ of this institution. Other member countries include a host of authoritarian, dictatorial, and theocratic regimes. And the fact that they're part of the UN should alert people to the undiscriminating nature of this organization. So a lot of people celebrate this feature of the UN because it's an open door policy, but it's precisely this neutrality that reveals the corruption of this organization, because it puts on the same level, and we saw that in the wording of the resolution that you read out earlier, between Israel and Hamas. It treats them as equal. And when you do that, when you say, I'm just going to put them, I'm not going to try to distinguish good and evil, we're going to put them on a level playing field, that kind of moral neutrality can only benefit those who are seeking to do harm, those who are on the side of evil. And this is inherent in the UN. It goes back, it precedes this conflict, it's broader than this conflict. You go back to the history of the UN, you see it all over the place. And there's a profound point that Ayn Rand makes about the nature of evil and the way in which it benefits from moral neutrality. So in her analysis, and this is just a snapshot, there's much more to say about her view of evil. Her view of evil is that it is essentially impotent. It doesn't have its own ability to create or do positive things. So it's parasitic on the good in many, many ways. And it's in particular, it's parasitic on the good because it's constantly trying to pass itself off as better than it is. And so this is one way in which the UN is it's a colossal crime against humanity, if you ask me. That's what the UN is, because it enables all these regimes like Hamas, like Syria, like Iran, like North Korea, all the member states that are in effect dictatorial, theocratic, authoritarian, that destroy the lives of their own people. All those regimes, by virtue of being in the UN, get a certain kind of credibility. And then on top of that, they're given positions of power within the UN. For example, Saudi Arabia and Iran have had positions on committees for the rights of women, if you can imagine that. But that's true. That actually happens at the UN. And it's a feature, not a bug of the system. The UN from top to bottom enables dictatorial and theocratic regimes. It is a tool for them to gain the moral cover that they need to pass off their crimes and launder their reputation. And we see that here in the resolution in the Hamas-Israel conflict, because what does it do to say, we call upon the release of all hostages? Well, we know that Hamas invaded Israel and kidnapped Israelis and took them hostage to the dungeons and the tunnels that they have in Gaza. Israel didn't do that. Israel took people who were soldiers of Hamas, in effect, and took them, you can say they took them hostage, but they're in effect prisoners of war. That is a very different thing. But what happens when you treat them all as hostages is that you whitewash the actual hostage taking. And I think that's a small example of the way in which the UN is, through its moral neutrality, lends legitimacy to evil and whitewashes it. And this can only embolden Hamas, particularly the resolution. And it is a global means of for dictatorships to make themselves look good. And it's no accident, therefore, that Russia and China in particular have been the ones pushing on this, because they know what the UN offers them. They love being part of the UN. And this is one way in which they pay forward to their friends who cover for them when the time comes for it.